welcome back to the chaos. I'm Ryan, and I'm standing in front of my new sim rig. So it's the GT Pro Lite, and it's kind of a watered down version of like a full-blown sim, because unfortunately my house is kind of small. I just don't have the space for a full rig setup. But I kind of want to get into sim driving, especially after I went to a buddy's house this past weekend, and he just had the wheel and pedal set up for Gran Turismo 7, and he just had it like locked into his desk and everything, and I mean, like, that was a blast. So after playing that, I was hooked. I knew I had to have something for myself, but because I've played, it's been several years, because that was on PS3 that actually had a wheel and a pedal setup combo for that, and it just kind of same deal as he had, was it just hooked to a desk. But I kind of want to take it to the next level, but unfortunately, because I don't have the space for a full-on sim rig, I figure our portable breakdown version should do. So we're gonna go ahead and get this unboxed and start setting it up. The space that we're working with is kind of tight. We have this room set up for, it's kind of like the game room, movie room, and then it also doubles as like a spare bedroom in case anybody ever comes to spend the night. So we set up an air mattress and stuff for guests. So we can't really have like a full-blown sim rig set up consistently. We just don't have the space for that. But we actually dubbed this room the Charlie room, and the reason for that is we have a dedicated memorial cabinet to our dog that passed away, unfortunately, from cancer a few years ago. But so we're gonna set up our portable sim rig here in the Charlie room. But like I said, the dimensions are tight. To kind of give you an idea, this is how it's normally set up. So we got like our little game chairs that just fold up, get out the way. And then there's not much space between that and the TV itself. Very limited floor space to work with. So we'll push these chairs out the way and then start building our sim rig. Now that we actually have space to put it together, and like if I lay down on this floor, I'm about 6 foot tall. So there's probably only 8 feet between the cabinet and the other cabinet where the TV stand and everything is. So that's what we're working with. So yeah, like I said, just not much space. So that's why the portable version is I think is the move for this setup. But let's jump in the box and see what we actually have in there. Hopefully this isn't a bad sign, but there's already we got nuts and bolts and parts already falling off of it. So I got this from Amazon, and of course, you know, you read through the reviews and everything, and like I heard a lot of people complaining about it looked as though when they got their package that it had been, you know, delivered to somebody else used it, maybe decided they didn't like it, whatever, put it together, and then yeah, took it all apart and sent it back. So hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully we have all of our parts needed to actually assemble this. Oh man, because I'm gonna be so sad if we try to get it put together and it's a bust. But let's go through, kind of look what we do have and go through our parts list and just make sure everything's there, and then we'll get to assembling time. I've got everything all laid out, and like the only package of nuts and bolts and things like that, what looks to be with the actual shifter mount, which I feel like a lot of people don't add that additional piece of the shifter. So we'll kind of go through and start going through directions and stuff, but I don't know, still not convinced that we're not putting it together for the second time. But as long as everything's here, that's fine. It's just I'm worried about things missing, because as you can tell, those are extra nuts and bolts that just fell out as I was unboxing. Well, this is the setup. The chair itself, like the racing seat, feels pretty comfortable as far as just, you know, touch. We'll see how it actually feels gaming for several hours at the time. Thankfully, it comes with a pretty hefty instructional manual. So I'm a slow reader, so it's gonna take me a little bit just to kind of get my bearings to figure out like exactly what steps are what. So as I read through this, then we'll actually get started after I know what the heck I'm actually doing. I need some help, so I've recruited Slam, and then we'll get back at it. But I think it'll just be infinitely easier with 2 people. So we hit like a good stopping point enough to give you an update. So far it's not necessarily like a bad put together install, but it definitely, like, yeah, takes some finagling, some wiggling. 2 people definitely helps. But sitting in the chair, I mean, like, it feels pretty comfortable. So we've got it, there's basically like kind of 3 recline positions, and we actually have it like in the upright most point. So otherwise, like, you just feel like you're kind of, I don't know, like in a 6'4" Impala, just like cruising like I should be in a Snoop Dogg video or something if it's leaned all the way back. But yeah, so upright I think is going to be the move for actually racing and kind of getting that race car feel. But yeah, so far it feels comfortable and it feels pretty sturdy. So we got to mount the shifter point because I've got a shifter and it's actually set up to where you could do left-hand drive or right-hand drive. I'm setting it up because I'm in America, so I'm gonna set it up to where I'm shifting with my right hand. So I'm setting it up as a left-hand drive sim. But so far, yeah, I feel like it's a lot sturdier construction than I was afraid it was kind of gonna be flimsy and stuff, because it is a fold up and portable kind of move out the way. But I'm impressed so far. So we'll continue on and get the shifter point mounted and then actually start throwing our gear up here, our steering wheel, pedals, all that kind of good stuff. Like I said, we kind of got this in the most upright position, and then you've actually got where your steering wheel is going to mount to. That kind of swings out of the way, so that way you can actually jump in and out of the rig without getting all tangled up in wires and all that kind of stuff. So this will just lock in place down here, and swinging out the way, get in and out. And then where your pedals actually mount to, these bars down here, these will actually slide up and down. So I'm a lot taller than Slam, so I'll have to slide mine up. But then it's just a flip of these. You just turn these little knobs and that will slide this whole piece down, so then she can actually reach the pedals. So a lot of adjustability and ease of adjustability too, which is nice. We hit a good stopping point, so we've actually got the whole seat and rig together, and then we actually got like the place where you mount your shifter, we've got that on there. And honestly, God, like, this was supposed to be, maybe I thought it would take maybe an hour tops, and we're going on a little over 3 hours. So I've kind of lost my helper for the night, so we're actually gonna pick back up tomorrow, unfortunately. But I'm getting hangry, we haven't eaten, stuff like that, so want to kind of start fresh so we don't mess anything up, especially with electronics and everything. But as far as the chair goes and the rig itself, everything should be good to go. So now it's just a matter of mounting wheels, pedals, shifter, but we'll take care of that tomorrow. But let me show you what we actually got done so far tonight. So it's looking legit. So obviously chair set up, pedal set up, they got these straps to kind of hold everything together, just kind of give you some rigidity. And then this thing, like where your shifter goes, I mean, I guess if you order and you just have the wheel and pedals, this took us an hour solid just on this alone. And it's not that difficult, it's just a matter of actually getting it into place. And there's like one little screw that holds this in, and you just have to line it up just right, but you have to beat the crap out of this thing to actually get it into place. But she's done now, so hopefully we'll never have to mess with that again. So for the moment, I'm just gonna pretend. But tomorrow we'll actually get it, yeah, fully set up. But I mean, like, it feels good, it feels steady. So first impressions right off the bat before actually really using it, everything seems to be exactly as advertised. So I'm excited to get everything officially mounted and then start racing. But like, hopefully this can elevate my skills a little bit on track. So this gets me hyped. So I know it's not a full-on sim rig, because I mean, you can spend tens of thousands of dollars on them, but for a setup well under $1,000, I'm pleased so far. So we'll catch up with you tomorrow and finish up the install. Back at it again, got a good night's rest. So our sim is all set up, ready to go. It's just waiting for the steering wheel, pedals, and shifter. So that's what we're going to unbox here in a second. And I went with all of Logitech stuff. I feel like it was like the most cost effective, because that's kind of the whole point of this build, is just try to make it as cheap as possible for a relatively entry-level setup. So I went with Logitech, the G923 steering wheel and pedals, and then I paired that with Logitech's driving force shifter. So can't wait to get my hands on it, but let's jump in the box and see what we got. So I figured the pedals would be the easiest thing to start with to mount, but I'm already discovering a problem. So with the GT Lite Pro kit, it comes with these little screws with washers, which is all well and good. So we have enough. There's 6 total mounting points on the bottom of our pedals, and then it just attaches to these slots. But the provided hardware, almost like you can push it through just about through the little slots. So they're not quite the slots are too big, or the bolts are too small. So we'll see how this goes, but I don't have too much faith in this. One thing I didn't realize, and I don't know why I thought about this or didn't think about this before, but because it's a foldable up, portable, that kind of thing, sim rig. So yeah, that whole bottom section tilts up. So I'm sitting here fumbling around on the floor with this much space underneath, trying to get those screws in, and the whole thing lifts up. So that makes it infinitely easier. But then I can also show you now that those washers just aren't big enough. They're just not meant for a slot that big. So they're on there, but I was doing my best to make them work, but I might have to pick up some larger washers just to make me feel better. It's a little hard to tell, but there's a washer behind this bolt, and it just barely clears that slot. So if that washer were bigger, I feel like it would have a better bite. But I mean, the whole thing seems pretty sturdy. It's pretty locked in there. Looking at the shifter itself and trying to figure out how it mounts, originally I was thinking like it has like these 2 clamps, because it kind of almost seems like it's basically set up for clamping on a desk, but the rig itself has like this plate and everything that it connects to. So I'm trying to figure out, the best approach. But just like our pedals, this shifter plate comes off. So I think I'm gonna pull this off and connect the shifter to the plate, because I can then see like the open slots, get them all lined up, because there's 2 attachment points here. And then, so I think it's going to be a combination of using these bolts to hold it to the plate, and then once we actually get it mounted up here, then mount it to the plate, then we can put the plate back on the rig itself. I think that's going to be infinitely easier than trying to finagle with the plate solid mounted and then trying to get our shifter on there. So that's the approach we're going to take and see how it goes. We have the shifter bolted down in place, and I still don't like the washers. They're just not big enough for either the shifter itself or our pedals, which kind of sucks. So like, had I known prior to starting this, I would have grabbed bigger washers, because I felt like that'd be the key. So I'll probably go back later and just swap all the washers out with bigger ones to bite down a little harder, because I just feel like they're wanting to pull through like those slots. So I just feel like over time, especially pressing on the pedals and shifting gears, like it's just gonna, I don't know, it might be fine, but just for the peace of mind, I'd rather have those bigger washers. But now onto the piece of resistance and the steering wheel. So just like we did with the others, I'm gonna make it easier on myself. This little pad that the steering wheel sits on, I'm gonna flip it up so that way we can actually see where these bolts are sliding into. But that's the last piece, and then we can hook it up to the PS5 and get to playing. Well, just when I thought I was done,
just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
I realized once I got this in place and all secured exactly where I want it, I was going to plug everything in, and all of this stuff runs essentially through the, I guess like the brain of the whole system is the steering wheel, and you can't get to where you need to plug the pedals into the steering wheel or the shifter into the steering wheel once you mount it. So I should have hooked all that up first. So the dang steering wheel has to come back off to plug everything in to then get it back to where it's supposed to be. So I'm gonna undo some stuff. I'm gonna save you all from having to sit through that, but give me a minute, get that fixed up, and then we can actually plug it into the PS5. Well, I'm back and I've corrected my mistake, and it's actually a brand new day. So this took, I'm honest to God, probably 5 to 6 hours in at this point, because like where I left y'all hanging was, we were talking about the steering wheel is basically like the brain of the operation, and so like all of your wires have to be hooked up to the brain to make everything function. Well, originally, yeah, I had mounted it without thinking about that, so I got it mounted, had to remove it to then hook up all the wires. Well, I remembered I hooked my pedals up, I hooked my shifter up, and wire management is a big thing too. Like, I mean, you can just hook it up with wires everywhere, but you got to think about too, like, you know, you don't want wires all over your lap and in your face while you're trying to drive. So try to tuck the wires as much as possible. So I got all that done. Then I realized like there's actually a power cord, how it got pushed to the side, and so I missed that. So I actually had to unmount it again. So this steering wheel has been now mounted 3 different times. So by the time I did all that in wire management, like I was over it. So we're starting fresh today. But let me show you exactly why it took so long and my thought process of why I ran the wires where I did and everything like that. So hopefully I'm very happy with the setup. Like, to me, it's just very clean as much as possible, because you're gonna have wires no matter what. So it's just a matter of minimizing the distractiveness of the wires themselves. So we've got them tucked up nicely, but let me show you exactly what I did. So here's our finished product, and I love the way it looks in here, but you'll notice, try to hide as much of the wires as possible. So like, you've got your pedals down here, and again, the steering wheel itself is the brain of the operations. So I've tried to hide the wire, run it up, and you have to leave slack in the cord itself. So I've run it up and inside of our straps, and again, these straps are just for rigidity, but I've kind of tried to tuck it up in here so that way it's up out of your way of your legs, and then got it bundled up here, because again, like, this whole cage swings open so you can get in and out. So you got to have wire somewhere, and that's why there's a little bit of slack in all of that. The only thing I don't really like, and there's no way to get around it, but this big giant USB cord, this is what actually plugs into your PS5. So that's just gonna come straight out of the rig like that. So it's gonna be taut, so at least it's not in the way of the pedals or anything, but no way around that one. So that's the only one I'm not thrilled about, but again, can't do anything about it. But then you have your shifter over here and the wiring set up for that. I've got it just wrapped around as much as possible before feeding it up to the steering wheel. So looking good. And then, like I said, the last thing that I forgot was the actual power cord. So I've got that run down and around, and just kind of the box for it, have it sitting back here at the base of the seat itself and then to the wall. But what I think is a pretty nice setup and wire minimalistic. Well, I never dreamed it would take this long to actually get my rig set up, but I'm ecstatic with the results. So take your time, do it right the first time, so that way we can be hands off, never have to touch it again. So before we actually get to some racing action though, it does recommend to hook your steering wheel up to the laptop, and Logitech offers like free updates for your software and everything. So we just want to make sure that the wheel's 100% up to date. So we're gonna do that first, and then we can actually get on track. So I've got the laptop fired up, and I'm actually on the Logitech website. So the system and application that they offer to keep the steering wheel up to date is called G-Hub. So I'm gonna go ahead and download that now, and then we'll make sure everything's good to go before we actually start playing. But, oh, it's already done, so that was a fast download. So we're just gonna install this first, and then we should be able to actually plug. I don't have the wheel plugged into the computer yet. I was gonna download the software first. I've got G-Hub installed at this point, so we're actually gonna go ahead and hook up our steering wheel to the laptop, and then it should hopefully communicate with it. So let's give it a try. So I'm gonna plug it, actually gotta plug the power in first. And then just like with the PS5, it's just a USB, so plug it into the laptop. Oh, I don't know if you can see that, but we got some gyration going on. So I'm assuming it's kind of calibrating itself. So once it does this little calibration, it pops up, it registers, it knows that this is the G923. So we'll click on it. Oh, well, it says firmware is up to date. So I don't know if it automatically did that when we launched the program or not, but either way, we're good to go. So easy as that. I'm not gonna really mess with any of the settings on our wheel at this point. I feel like it's probably good to go. So yeah, mission complete as far as getting the wheel up to date. So now's the fun part. Now we actually get to go racing. I've got the wheel hooked up to the PS5 at this point, and I've launched Gran Turismo 7, so we're gonna give a race a try here in a second, but it went through the same calibration that it did when we had it plugged into the laptop. So it kind of does its thing, so just keep your hands free, just be mindful of that it's gonna go a little crazy, but we should be ready to go. So I'm gonna make sure I've got the car that I want, so I'm replicating. I've got my 350Z selected, and we're going to one of my favorite tracks that I would love to run at one point in real life, but Scuba Circuit in Japan. So we're just gonna lock into a relatively easy race, at least to begin with, just to get our feet wet. So we'll see how this goes. We're just doing the classic Sunday Cup, and then we wanna make sure, I guess we go into the race, and then 'cause we wanna make sure I want it to be on manual mode and to make it as realistic as possible. That's the whole goal here on our little budget sim setup. Settings, assist settings. Yep, don't want automatic, we want manual. And see how this goes. So I'm should be able to use the wheel at this point. Wish me luck, boys. First race with the new setup. Our first race, and we didn't die. So it's not that I'm not familiar with the wheel and pedals and all, but I've never actually driven, because even on my old PS3 setup I never had a shifter. So that's an interesting, I really like it. I missed a whole lot of shifts though, so I think I was shifting too quickly. So like I ended up in neutral a lot, so I was having to like push the clutch back in and then go back to whatever gear I was in. So not the prettiest lap ever, but that was the first one. And I mean, like, I feel solid. I've only been sitting here a few minutes, but I'm really interested to see, like, I feel like I could sit for hours on end and get lost just practicing over and over, especially with a similar car setup that I'm gonna be racing on in real life, and just going through the motions. Like that's what I was after, was a budget friendly setup, just something I could get in here, play with, and not take it too seriously, because again, like, I'm still going through the HPDE stuff, trying to graduate from that, but just getting in here and kind of replicating a little bit the look and feel of being in a car. That's what I was after, so I think we nailed it. I'm loving it so far. So again, not my prettiest lap, but that's what it's for, practice. Early first impressions, I'm in love. So it took a game, Gran Turismo 7, that has been out for several years at this point, that I've kind of grown stale of, played through the game, kind of beat a lot of the challenges, stuff like that. It's made that game feel fresh again. So I'm just excited to hopefully boost like real life skills, just translating driving on the game, shooting for better lap times, and just going through the motions of shifting gears, trying to get the perfect racing line, stuff like that. Hopefully that'll translate over to real life, because we've been going through, Paul and I, we got a little competition going, so hopefully this will help me boost me up, because as of right now he's kind of the better driver, but I'm playing catch up. So hopefully something like this though will boost my skills as a driver and just get me more comfortable behind the wheel. So then when I actually get to a real track, especially because the game has my 350Z was what I usually race with, so once I actually get on track, I should feel very comfortable in it. But man, I love this. It's been one of those things, like, I've wanted for the longest time, and again, I just don't have the biggest house, the most space for like a true dedicated sim rig, because again, you could spend tens of thousands of dollars on a dedicated computer, a rig that's, you know, kind of a permanent fixture, just bigger, bulkier. But I like the idea of, this is our guest bedroom, so when we need it, I can fold this thing up, put it in the closet, put it out of the way, and it's out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. So that's a huge selling point for me. But it's gonna be perfect to get my feet wet and get some seat time. Even if it is virtual, driving is still driving, right? But I'm absolutely over the moon with this setup. So let me know what you think in the comments below. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to help you out. Like I said, I would recommend, if you are gonna get a similar rig like this, pick up some bigger washers. That's the only thing I'm kind of nervous about still, is everything, again, very early on, but everything right now feels very sturdy. But I think that the bigger washers will give you the peace of mind knowing that, yeah, everything's gonna stay in place, bolted down like it should. But if you have any questions, like I said, I'll be happy to help you out. But I appreciate everybody watching. If you haven't already, make sure you smash that subscribe button, and we'll catch y'all in the next one.